Hello and welcome to the Birthing Conscious Humans podcast. And this morning I'm speaking with my friend Sophia Ortiz.
Hello.
Who is going to be talking about water birth with me.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah. So Sophia, tell me a little bit about who you are.
Okay, so my name's Sophia Ortiz, and I am an independent midwife.
Yeah.
I studied in England. I worked in England for 3.5 years in quite a large tertiary unit.
Yeah.
And during that time of study and work, I had 2 water births myself for my 2 lovely boys. And now I have moved back to Corfu with my family and my husband who's from here. And we are bringing water birth to Corfu as much as we are able at the moment.
Yeah. Awesome. Which is a lot about what this conversation will sort of describe and unfold this morning. We have a bit of a history together, Sophia and Sophia. A number of years ago, Sophia directed the Vagina Monologues.
Yeah, in my previous life.
In your previous life.
My previous life, I did an acting degree, and I produced and directed and acted in a bilingual production of the Vagina Monologues, which brought me closer to a large group of very inspiring, strong women, one of whom was Sophia Michalopoulou.
Which was an amazing exploration of our femininity and what made us women, and touched on trauma. I mean, the play itself brought up issues. So there was already, long before we talked about birth or water birth or anything like that, we were obviously on a path of some sort. And
that experience certainly brought me closer to realising that I wanted to be a midwife and work with women and work with birth. Yeah.
And here we are, the synchronicity of coming back to Corfu at this time. Which has its challenges, but has also given birth to many amazing projects. And one of that has been the Pregnancy and Birth Network of Kerkyra.
Which is a fantastic group of 5 women. And we all work with pregnancy and birth and early period of parenthood. From different perspectives, we've got a lot of different skills within the group, and we came together almost a year ago now.
During the first lockdown.
To see how we could work together to promote normal birth, joy in birth, and support the women, particularly of Corfu, who needed that input and that support.
I think so. And because of lockdown, but also bringing an awareness that comes more from a womanhood rather than a medicated system, which is where most of the kind of pregnancy and birth support in Corfu does come from a medical perspective.
Bringing it back to the birthing person's body and knowledge and innate understanding that they have within themselves, and trusting that, because within the culture at the moment, whether it's Corfu or the wider culture, we just have lost so much trust within our instincts, within our bodies, and we need to come back to understanding that is our greatest knowledge and our greatest strength.
Yeah, and there is a lot of also concrete, factual, practical information that needs to be laid down to realise that, you know, it doesn't need to be a fear-based reality.
Absolutely.
Birth can definitely be a positive, powerful experience. And we'll talk a little bit later about what's possible in Corfu. I mean, my passion being water and you being able to provide and support a water birth was obviously something that sparked this conversation. And the whole sort of podcast series, Birthing Conscious Humans, from my perspective and how I interpret that, is the gentler the transition for an incoming soul, for a baby, the more they can remember who they are. There's less trauma. There is an easier, like I said, transition from one reality to the next. And a baby can keep more of who they are.
in the water birth, Sophia, you've automatically got a space that is just for the mother and the baby. And those are the people who are birthing. You know, it's not just the mother's body, and it's not just the baby. They're doing it together. And as soon as you put them in a relaxing hot water tub, they have their space.
Absolutely.
And they are in control of that space. And nobody can do anything to them in that space that they don't want done.
Yeah.
And that automatically creates a flow and a support for the birth process. And as soon as you've done that, you're supporting her natural rhythms, the baby's natural rhythms, and not interrupting that whole process, so that you're creating an environment where they can trust each other, and they can be born without fear, without intervention. And trusting themselves, both of them, and a lot of babies who are born in the water, it's been observed a lot that they tend to be a lot calmer, a lot more relaxed. They tend to feed easily. The mother automatically wants to hold that baby skin to skin, which is the best place for the baby. So the water birth itself really supports that idea of transitioning from one state to the other.
And it's something that, and we've worked on it together as Water Happy, and working with newborns and babies in the water. One of the first things we do is learning to define our space in water. Like water naturally creates like a bubble around you. On the one hand, there are no boundaries in water, but the pool itself, like the hot tub we have here, creates a space between the birthing mother and baby and who's outside the pool.
Absolutely.
And that gives a natural border and boundary, which for me is best explored before the birth, because it's a really empowering, defined space. The partner can get in. Can a partner get in?
If they want to, a partner can get in. If the mother wants. If the birthing person wants them to. Then I've never personally been at a birth where the partner gets in, but I do know that there have been plenty where the partner gets in, gives massage, holds the birthing person for support.
And that's also when we prepare, when the whole pregnancy is sort of supported in water, then that's something that can be explored with the partner, especially because I feel that, you know, water is something that men resonate with easily, especially we live on an island, you know, most guys love the sea or have something to do with it, so there's a natural affinity to it that could actually be inviting dads into the birth process more, with more curiosity.
And again, just as it creates the space for the birthing person and the baby, it creates a space for the family. You know, if that's what they want to explore beforehand. And for any couple, whatever kind of birth they're planning, I would highly recommend any planning or support to really talk and listen to each other, how that person needs to be supported, and to have a whole bag full of tools that you can use, because you might find that something you really thought you wanted, you don't want at the time, but you've got other tools to draw on that you can use in that time. And if you've worked on that together, then that becomes instinct.
And there's something else that you touched upon before about, and you can feel it or remember it from experience, even if you haven't had a water birth. When we enter a body of water, things slow down. You know, the metabolism slows down. We go to the beach and it's like, suddenly. And that slowing down also happens during a water birth.
Well, funnily enough, being in the water when you're in active labour actually reduces the length of labour by roughly 2 hours, even if it's your first time. So in some ways, I suppose it's not necessarily slowing down your body, but slowing down your mind. And then that allows your body to take over, or you allow your body to take over. Okay, so your mind slows down enough for you to just enter your body and allow it to do what it needs to do. Having said that, if you enter the water before you're in active labour, sometimes there's a build-up and it might have taken a while and you might be tired. Sometimes labour will slow down so much that it will stop and it will allow you to rest, which again is a fantastic way to recover if you need to have that rest so that you're prepared then for active labour.
And to keep going.
And as a practitioner, it's a really good way to judge how progressed the labour is. You know, if someone's saying, I really want to get in the water, I really want to get in, and they get in and then it all slows down, then great, they can have that rest and recuperate when they need to. Sometimes they get in and it all speeds up and they needed that relaxation, mental relaxation as well as physical. Yeah.
There's one big word that we use in the water, especially around babies, is allowing. And there's you can even feel it in your body, that allowing there's a huge letting go of muscular tension, of nervous tension, of mental speed, and it's actually an opening up so that baby can do what it needs to do.
And that's the mother allowing. It's not the mother saying, oh, they allow me, or she wouldn't allow me, they wouldn't allow me. It's the mother allowing her body to function in the best way possible that she feels comfortable with, and letting go so that the baby can come through,
can do it
and find its best way.
Its best way, and that's something, birthing conscious humans from a baby's perspective. So let's say I'm a baby, I've sent the impulse, I'm ready to come out.
Knock knock.
Knock knock. Am I allowed? Is there an allowing? Can I do what nature has not programmed me, but created for me, to wriggle, to twist and turn, to use impulses, waves, to find my way through that birth canal. If mama is saying, I'm allowing, and allowing baby to do that in his or her time.
Well, during pregnancy, and then particularly during birth, the baby and a birthing person's body is always talking. It's always sending messages, right? And being in the water allows so much more the mother to hear those messages and respond, particularly physically. There's so much space to move, to change position, and to support herself in her instincts of what she's hearing from her body and from her baby.
And there is that, baby is already in a swimming pool. She's already in an amniotic sac. So you've got a baby in a pool and a mum in a pool. So there's that sort of the mechanics, I call that aquatic, water's intelligence to reach resonance, like two bodies of water, even though they're in different containers, will find resonance with each other. Temperature will equalize, pressure will probably equalize. So it really does strengthen what you were saying, that bonding capacity, and to listen deeper. We say listen like water.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the intimacy of, okay, you can be naked, or you can wear your swimming costume or your underwear in the pool. And so that skin to skin contact, not just with baby, but also with yourself, with your own body.
Absolutely. You've got, it's such a sensual medium, being in warm water. As soon as we get in a warm bath, we feel it. Anybody who likes getting in a warm bath, the warm or the sea, can feel that sensation. And you'll find that a lot of women in water birth situations are much more likely to put their hand down to feel their baby's head as it's coming out. They feel much more in control, particularly at that moment that baby's being born. Because nobody else obviously can get into that situation. It's not so easy for a practitioner to get involved in that situation, but also simply because they're in a medium that supports it. And because they've got that control, there's a lot less trauma, particularly to the perineum, in water births.
There's increased mobility. There's less pressure on the joints and on the body, so I guess a woman can flex her hips and open up and really feel into how that baby wants to move out.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the society we live in creates and supports a sort of sedentary lifestyle, and we've got very used to not moving as much as what we would have done maybe 100 or even 50 years ago. And you need to do that preparation physically beforehand, but the water allows it so much more to be able to hold your weight, obviously, but also creates the warmth within your muscles, your ligaments, that create a bit more flexibility, a bit more space, a bit more movement, and that helps the birth process so much.
Which I think you can already feel. It's like, well, you were saying before, you know, you get into the bath, and automatically the body goes, like that memory stays alive in the body. And, you know, I think anyone can feel how there's a softening and a releasing and an opening up, which is that natural state of giving birth. And I think, you know, talking about water birth, there's, you know, you can't talk about water birth without talking about our natural birth. And it is, you know, engaging natural law, the forces of nature, and sort of surrendering is a big word.
Yeah, but it is absolutely one that applies to the birth process, you know. And learning to do that throughout the pregnancy is the best preparation you can do, however you decide to prepare, whether it's through yoga, meditation, walking, in the water, however you choose, surrendering to your body doing that.
And we also tend to talk about waves and rather than contractions. Because of that, the flow, the force of nature that sort of rises and falls. You know, there's a ebb and a flow. Which is a metaphor for the whole process, but quite a physicality to it as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a lot of women and a lot of birth preparation techniques talk about either calling it a wave during birth, calling the surge a wave, or using the image of a wave rising and crashing against the beach or whatever you want to visualize, and then ebbing away. And visualizing that, or visualizing swells over the ocean, even if for whatever reason you can't have access to water during your birth, that visualization, if a lot of people have practiced it and it resonates with them, can really help as well.
And I'm laughing because I'm thinking, sometimes it does feel like a tsunami, like a huge wave. Oh my God, you know, how can I contain that, the force of nature? And because I've had that question sort of put to me before, and it's like, and I don't know if it's true, I'm asking, you know, if the body can give rise to that physiology, to the intensity of the wave, then I can contain it, I can own it, because it's my body. So somewhere in me, I should be able to find the capacity to hold that intensity.
And that's a really interesting way to put it, because I suppose for me it's less about containing it and allowing it, like we were saying. Because sometimes if you try to contain it too much, you're trying to escape it. And you can't try and escape it, because then you won't allow it to happen. Trusting and having faith in your body that it's not going to bring you something that you can't handle. Okay, we've been doing this process for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, and it works. And women's bodies are built to do it, and so our babies are built to go through it. And the process is astounding scientifically and medically, as well as spiritually and emotionally. It is awe-inspiring when you're with a woman in labour, and when you are that woman in labour. Trusting that process.
It's trust, isn't it? Trust is the big word
for the woman and for the birth practitioner.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting because I was having this conversation within the, let's say, induction, the conversation within natural induction, and it's when the waves start naturally. I assume there's a sense of control because it's coming from within me. Whereas when there is an impulse, an intervention coming from the outside, then I'm reacting to something outside of me rather than inside of me.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you listen to women and their birth stories and their satisfaction with their birth experience, what they will tell you is not that they were not satisfied because they were in so much pain. It's they were not satisfied because they weren't in control and they didn't feel that they were actually part of the process. But when they are part of the process, when they have their choices, when they are in control of the situation, regardless of whether they feel it so in control that they can let go, that is when they are satisfied with the experience, regardless of the outcome. You know, however the birth ends up happening, if they feel they were part of the process, in control, and they had choice, and they were supported with those choices, that's when they are satisfied and happy to begin the journey of motherhood.
Absolutely. And it's an empowered process. There are women that say, oh yeah, I really wanted a water birth, but it didn't happen in the end. There seems to be then a negative, I failed somehow. But I think it's about saying that, water in pregnancy and birth, it's not about, I'm actually going to, my baby's going to come out in the water. It can be part of the preparation, even if there isn't a facility for a water birth. So you are having your water environment prep. You can use, let's say, the bath or a birthing pool for early stages of labour.
Absolutely.
And then come out to give birth. So there's no fixed way.
Absolutely not. And you, part of the preparation process is to understand that you're giving into that moment. You're surrendering to that moment and what it is that you need in that moment. You might think you might love the water and you might love being in water, but then when it comes to it, you're like, I don't want to get in the water. Actually, I really want to have my feet planted on the land, and that's fine. As long as you've had the option or the experience or the support throughout as you needed it.
Absolutely. And I mean, a little bit for me, because I'm a water person, I grew up on the island, and I know that as islanders we have a natural affinity to water, and I'm sort of hoping that, we're going to be able to ride that wave to bring awareness, if anything, and to start using water as an educational tool, medium, environment for birthing parents, as well as training midwives, doulas, because there are water birth courses out there and online courses and in person. And one of the things I'm passionate about is there's so much you can do with water, even before conception. Like, don't wait for your water birth. Start early. So that's something that we're working on already. And there's many technicalities we can get into when talking about water birth. But what I'd like to ask you now is, okay, say a woman in Corfu would like to have a water birth. What is needed? What does she need? What's the practical, what does it look like?
A bathtub isn't the best solution, simply because it doesn't give you as much space. Okay, so the best solution is a birthing pool that's specially designed so it comes up and covers the mother's abdomen at least, and there's enough space for her to open her legs, for her to grab something on the side if she needs to, and I can provide that birthing pool. if she chooses to birth at home, with me as her midwife. And then she would just need a liner, so that we can keep it as clean as possible, the birthing pool. And then practicalities, maybe like a waterproof sheeting for the floor, lots of towels and sheets, old towels and old sheets that you're not going to want. And space, enough space, and a strong floor.
A strong floor,
for the pool.
Water does get heavy. And it's warm. The water. No, we always try and keep it to the woman's liking. Sometimes in summer they might want it a little bit cooler, and in winter they might want it a bit warmer, but as the birth is about to happen, we try and keep it like body temperature, 37.5, so that the baby is comfortable. Because it actually perceives the temperature a baby would perceive the temperature higher than the birth, like 1 degree higher than the mum, so it's keeping that water temperature steady, I would say also. So, by the sounds of it, that would be within a home. A home birth environment, which is now possible in Corfu. It is on offer for cases for birthing mamas or couples that are up for it.
And who are interested.
Amazing in itself. And then there's also, the birth preparation in water that can come with that as well. Looking at birth from a baby's perspective, I have this image of we take a dive. It's summer, we take a dive, we're underwater. A baby isn't really holding their breath when they're in the amniotic sac, are they?
No, there isn't any breath to hold. It's a water environment. Their lungs are filled with water. They, they haven't been in air. They haven't breathed air. There's a huge physiological shift that needs to happen as soon as they're born. So when they're born under the water, they're not going to breathe in because there's no space to fill. Their lungs are filled with water. They're in water. Even if they open their mouth, it's not going to go anywhere. So when they come up out of the water is when they first take their first breath. I think as long as the birth process has been normal and the baby has been
the transition,
healthy and safe in that birth process.
Because I think, one of the ways I work with water is, it can trigger in us the anxiety of I'm not going to have enough air. But what I do want to say is that it's different for the birthing baby because they haven't come from an air environment. They are completely immersed. They're in water and the water is in them. And it's actually the initiation, the push through that tight birth canal that pressures, in a way, the water out of baby's lungs and out of baby's system.
And it does do that pressure through the birth canal, and you see it when they're being born. You see the fluids coming out of them, but again, it's because there isn't the negative pressure. Their lungs aren't going to fill with the birth water when they come into when they are born into the water. That will happen once they're again in the air.
And there's, from what I understand, a reduction in the water, a reduction of the water in the lungs that creates then enough capacity in them for them to take air in. So there isn't this kind of grasp of panic. And I see it with newborn when mamas come to the pool with their newborn babies. There's kind of an anxiety of, oh my God, if baby's going to go under, they're going to drown. And there isn't that urgency, there isn't that rush, there is again, going back to that allowing and trusting that a physiological birth has nature working with it. And it's magical to see baby coming out.
Absolutely.
In her time. And there's that whole change of environment from the liquid to the air, which we've all been through. Everything is louder, colder.
It's a huge shock.
It's a huge shock.
It's a huge shock being born for a baby. It would be like, you know, a whale suddenly finding itself on the top of a mountain.
Yes, exactly.
It's huge shock, and the more physiological and calm the birth environment can be, and that includes the body of the mother as the birth environment for the baby, then the easier that transition will be, and the easier the baby will feel it. It won't feel like such a shock and something so strange. They'll feel, okay, I'm supported there. I can smell my mother, I can feel my mother, I can hear my mother. This must be okay because she's with me.
And she's right. And going back to what you were saying at the beginning, like the birthing pool is a natural border and boundary. So you have time on your side. Once baby is birthed, there's no kind of rush to get out of the pool. Everything is done slower. You can probably stay in that water for longer with
as long as it's not too cold. You don't want the baby getting cold.
Yeah.
They can lose heat quite easily, but there are ways to make sure that doesn't happen. Staying skin to skin, putting on a little hat, making sure the air around isn't obviously too cold. But most women, to be honest, want to get out of the water as soon as they've given birth to the baby.
But it's not a panic,
always,
it's not a rush, it's not, oh my God, So there's, again, that sense of, you're probably taking it careful to get outside of everything, kind of, because and coming back to sort of an awareness of self, which for me arises when we are immersed in water. This feedback from the water, am I moving too fast, am I going slow? It brings an awareness back to the body.
I suppose I haven't thought about this before, but it's a really lovely reflection. If the baby's been born in the water and then the mother's holding and then the woman gets out of the water, birthing person gets out of the water, they're, in a way being reborn together, then as a different couple, as a mother and child, as a parent and a child.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty for me of birthing at home, and water being that womb space that they both come out. You can hold it in a ceremonious space, depending on who's birthing and what how you've prepared. But symbolically, it's powerful.
I mean, however birth happens, in whatever environment it happens, it's a rite of passage.
Yes, absolutely.
And whichever number birth it is, whether it's your first or whether it's your 10th, it's a rite of passage for the birthing person and for the child. And those gateways are there because they signify changes in our life, and we need to be aware of them and prepared for them. And however best we can do that for ourselves, and it will be different for everybody, is the best way to prepare for that change. And being aware of it, understanding the messages from your body, from your emotions, from your psychology, how that happens, and how best to prepare and support yourself.
It's, we think that we've forgotten how we came into the world, and yet, for me, that memory stays in the water. Water remembers, and our liquid physiology remembers. And I have adults, not necessarily pregnant, or sometimes preparing to become parents, that when immersed in warm water in a hot tub, their body begins to move as if they're being born. Like, it's incredible to see how that memory is awakened by the water itself, because it's sort of, it creates the environment in which the first memory was imprinted. So it's kind of, it can be liberating and a relief to kind of rebirth yourself in the warm water, but also as a way to prepare for giving birth. You know, you've kind of retouched on those parts that are inside you.
Yeah, and we know that your own birth story has a large impact on how you will then give birth.
Absolutely.
And if there is anything lingering or traumatic or negative associated with that, then the best time to deal with it is either before pregnancy or during pregnancy, but before the birth process of your own birth process. Because birth and labour are such vulnerable times that it will bring up anything that we haven't dealt with.
Beneath the surface.
Beneath the surface.
So to speak. And that then leads back to what I was saying at the beginning, remembering more of who we are, because we're remembering those first 9 months in water, which are the very foundations of what comes after. Our whole life, not just the birth. So we're remembering that part. We're remembering not just the physiology, we're remembering the emotional space, the spiritual space that we come through. And the more parents sort of own up to their part of the story, then baby can bring more of their story through, rather than being in reaction to mama's story or papa's story.
Yeah. I often think, and this might be a scary thought for a lot of people, but actually it's really empowering when you come to realize it, is that life in general, but particularly when you come to parenting, is a series of choices and consequences. And that first choice is deciding to be pregnant and to have a baby. And then the next biggest one is how to birth your baby. And parents need to take responsibility for that, in the preparation for it, in the outcome of it, and then that leads to their own awakening and support, and they gain that feeling of being in control, of being empowered, and then they start that journey with that feeling, regardless of how the birth actually happened. If you are taking the responsibility for your choices and the possible consequences.
Which is probably for me one of the biggest sort of evolutionary leaps in the past, not so long, a couple of decades even, of owning up to our birth and our choices. And birth isn't something that just happens to us.
No.
I mean, I'd say we choose to be born, but I choose to be pregnant with my partner in a more aware and conscious space, rather than it just happened. I think more and more people are exploring conscious ways, let's say, of preparing to conceive.
Absolutely, and but at the same time, if it is a surprise, let's say, which also happens, then there is every opportunity to make it a positive experience.
Beautiful.
And sometimes a surprise is the best way to dive in the deep end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm sure people have lots of questions, technical, practical, in Greek and in English, and that's why we created the Pregnancy and Birth Network, when we do meet online once a month. So if there's any questions, people can throw questions into the circle then on Facebook.
Or online as a message if they want to be more anonymous.
That's a good point. And where can people find you, Sophia?
On my Facebook page at the moment, Holistic Midwifery, Holistic Midwifery. They can send me a message, and I'm happy to talk online as a video call or on the phone, or simply directing people to information or whatever support it is they feel they need.
So we'll write the details down. in the video of this podcast. It's been beautiful. I know we could go on forever talking about this. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sophia, for the opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.